Welcome to December 1st, 2022 regular meeting of the Human Services Advisory Board. I'm calling the meeting to order at 7:02.
Am I supposed to hear you guys?
Oh dear. Yeah, Gloria, you should be able to hear us. Yes. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you all for attending. I will now call roll for the record of the board meetings and board members in attendance. Allison,
Can you hear me?
Mary,
Here.
Ruben, Monica, Rachel,
Here.
Joanne is here, and Mary. Okay, and Mariana, she's our non-voting member, and she's here.
Present.
Okay,
Okay, do you want to pause and see if Gloria's set up?
okay, go ahead.
Gloria, are you set up? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm good now.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, with 5 out of 7 voting members in attendance, we have a quorum. Staff, is anyone present in person, online, or by phone to speak during the citizen comment period?
I'm gonna mute everyone. We have one person.
Were they speaking?
Or they just signed out. Okay, if anyone is here to speak for the citizen comment period specifically, will you please raise your hand on the little bar below for the Zoom bar? I think everybody that's showing on the screen is here as part of a appeal.
Okay, that's fine.
Diane Breedlove is with, oh, she's raising her hand. Hang on. Diane, you're able to unmute. Okay, there you go. Were you wanting to speak?
I just wanted to take a few minutes on behalf of Schofield to thank the committee, the board, for their recommendation to council for our award, and to assure them that all grant money goes directly to the purchase of food. Since Schofield has no employees, we use all grant money for food. Again, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and mute her. Okay. And it looks like everybody else is on for the appeals. Okay.
We will now consider approval by motion of the minutes for the October 27th and November 3rd, 2022 meeting. Do I hear a motion? And these are to approve those 2 minutes. Do I hear a motion from one of the board?
Motion approval.
Okay, Mary, thank you. And do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. And does the board have any discussion or corrections regarding the minutes? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All against say nay. We will now hear and discuss appeals of proposed 2023 Human Services grant funding from the agencies who have appealed. The board's rules and regulations require that each appealing agency be given a chance to discuss the appeal with the board. I would like to provide 3 minutes for each agency to discuss with the board one by one. The first agency is Hayes County Food Bank with the food distribution program. And Eleanor, is that you? Okay,
Yes, I'm here.
you have 3 minutes.
Okay, go ahead. Hi, first of all, I do want to thank the board for their service to the community. I understand that this is a difficult task and there are many organizations to support with very limited resources. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I also recognize that the city has not increased funding in many years. Even while our population has continued to grow and there are more services available that are deserving of funding and in need of funding, and citizens that require and need their services. The scoring system, I have served on the Human Services Advisory Board, so I am familiar with the scoring system. And I do think that it's a wonderful tool to help, kind of provide guidance and insight and to kind of categorize and show what or how well the organization, turned in everything, has met deadlines, has been through the process before. So that I do think that your scoring criteria helps all of us to understand where we are in the system or in your vote for this year. With that being said, I question the last organization in your ranking receiving the most funding out of all of the other organizations that requested funding for 2023. To me, that doesn't, I don't see how that aligned, and I would like some clarification on that. I saw that there were percentages, and that I commend you on trying to support all of the organizations. But I do think that that's a difficult task to do with the $500,000 that you're given. I believe that you had more organizations asking for funding this year than we did last year. And last year we had over $1 million to allocate, if I remember correctly, or close to it. So that was a tough task to try to fund everyone. So I just want to understand how, and also an organization that received the second highest amount is an organization that, in my recollection, has not been funded in the past 4 or 5 years. Not that all of these organizations are deserving of funding. I'm just trying to understand how the ranking system and your clarification through that came to those conclusions. And if it was that you're going to do percentages based on the amount of funds requested, then that just signals to all of the organizations requesting funding to ask for more funding. And I think that's kind of a slippery slope. I don't know that that's the best policy. So I'm here to support you guys, and I want to help you. I want to help this process. I do think that it's a very important process. And the question I have would it be helpful for the city to provide further parameters on who to fund? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I let it go a little bit beyond 3 minutes, but I'll
Sorry.
get a fair point for each person.
Carol,
Yeah.
Joanne, hi, I'm sorry. I was checking my email to see where Youth Services Bureau was because I didn't see them logged in, and she was having trouble also. And so I sent her my link. So there's my name again, but it's Julie with the Youth Services Bureau.
Great.
I'm
Okay.
here.
So-
Thank you, Miss Julia. Is it my turn?
You need to call her.
The San Marcos Youth Bureau is next.
Okay. I'm here basically to stand in support expressed by our other executive directors. And we understand that the Human Service Advisory Board is a difficult board to be on, and we appreciate your work, no question. As an agency, since COVID and things, we are still in survival mode. And our kids are suffering a lot. And they're just now starting to rebound and come to the program and get back to what is kind of a normal life for them. It is they who are truly struggling. They're struggling emotionally, educationally, and socially, and like I've never seen before in all the years that I've been here. So I just am asking that we don't forget our youth in San Marcos, as far as just some supportive types of programs that we have. We have a few programs in San Marcos that address the youth, but not too many. But basically, we are still concerned with, yeah, I mean, if we asked for a lot more money, maybe we would get a lot more money, you know, just the way things panned out that way. So just a comment, and still, we do appreciate everything you've done. And so good luck, and and hopefully at some point we can increase the amount of dollars that we have in the budget. So thanks. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next is the court-appointed special advocates.
Good evening.
There it is.
Yes.
Casa.
We're ready.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. My name is Nicole Douglas, and I have a couple of my supervisors here with me this evening, Norma Blackwell and Tricia Snyder. I'll open up with thanking the committee or the board as well for their time and hearing us on the fiscal year 2023 funding. And likewise, like the others have said, we appreciate what your board does for the community. And as you're aware, CASA requested human services funding in the amount of $20,725. And what your board has recommended is $11,151. Earlier this year, CASA had requested through CDBG funding the amount of $60,000 as the previous year for CDBG funding. We were granted $39,275. This reduction led us to request the amount that would meet the same services with the same amount of funding that we had received previously with the $60,000. We aimed to ask and maintain the same level of service for the amount of accurate data that we could supply to fund that amount of request. Our approach was to be transparent with this and provide you with the most information that we could to need to sustain those services. And with that, I want to again introduce Ms. Blackwell as our Chief Executive Officer, who can further discuss a couple of points regarding some of the things that we'd like to share.
Hi, good evening, and thank you so much for allowing us to speak tonight. And I also want to echo everything that my peers shared with you all. One of the things that I would like to also share with the board is that CASA, Court-Appointed Special Advocates, we are the only organization in the community. We're not duplicating services. And also, I would like to share with you that we have 100% giving from our board of directors. We have a very strong board of directors within CASA. So I also wanted to share that with you all, that they see, they look at all our funding, where it comes from. So they want to make sure they also donate to CASA to be able to help the organization, not only rely from any other sources of funding, but we really appreciate if you can take that into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, and we are at 3 minutes.
The Greater San Marcos Youth Council. This is for family and youth success.
Yes. Hi, if, I hope it's okay. I wasn't sure how much time you guys were going to have for us. And so I just combined them together. And I should only need 3 minutes for both, if that.
That's fine. That's what you have. 3 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. We appreciate the process and funding guidelines you have in place for this competitive grant. It gives value to the investment made by taxpayers and ensures accountability, as well as documented impact for the funds received. It is estimated that at any given time, 79,000 Texas children are being trafficked for sex, with Texas ranking 5th in the nation for sex trafficking. A pregnant 14-year-old escaped her trafficker and made it to a restaurant in downtown San Marcos. The restaurant owner was familiar with us and called. A local justice of the peace called to confirm there was space for a teenager in our shelter if no one from her family picked her up. SMPD referred a father to us because he had no one to care for his young son on a very short-term basis. Our goal is to keep 2 beds open at all times for emergencies such as these. Our Counseling and Resource Center serves as a one-stop shop for families and their children who are in conflict or experiencing crisis. They can access prevention and intervention services 24/7, year-round. Services that are offered at no cost to families to prevent and in many cases intervene to stop negative behaviors such as abuse, neglect, truancy, delinquency, running away, and other risky behaviors. We currently have a waiting list for services, and over the past 2 years, like probably everybody that applied for funding, we've seen an increase, right, in the need. We've conducted more suicide and mental health assessments and counseled more sexual abuse victims than ever before. We appreciate very much that our award recommendation for this program was not reduced from the 2021 amount. However, we respectfully request the 55% recommendation as our score warrants for the top 15 highest scoring agencies. As helpers, social workers, and caregivers, we understand completely the desire to fund every request. However, there are many more Hays County nonprofits in addition to the 38 who applied this year. In fact, there are approximately 200 in San Marcos alone. The recommended award for the children's shelter is 66% less than our 2021 award. With a 55% recommendation, I wish we had requested more. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Nostros for the shoe drive and also the Coke program, which would be 6 minutes.
Yeah, my name is Joe Castillo. I'd like to thank the board for allowing us this opportunity to appeal y'all's recommendation. As I stated in my letter that I sent, this is probably the lowest amount of money that y'all have allocated for the shoe program. You're actually recommending 2,000, and 5,000 is probably the lowest we've ever gotten. Last year, or this current year, we got 10,000, and then 9,500 the year before. So it makes it a bit challenging to be able to meet the needs of the kids of the city of San Marcos, the school district. Matter of fact, we just purchased shoes this morning, given a total of 916 pair of shoes at a total cost of $15,033.06. So the amount you're recommending is not going to cover that. And everybody, all the social service agencies are having difficulties raising funds. And then when you have these other agencies that, like that 40,000, I question that too. And then there's other agencies on here that didn't receive any funding last year or the year before, but yet they're on this list. To me, you should have focused, if you had a limited amount of money, focused on the ones that have continued to show progress of what they're doing. I mean, all the money that we receive, not for paid staff at all, goes to the shoes. And then of course we have the coats. As of this morning, we bought total 308 pairs of coats for a total of $6,334.96. So with the amount you're recommending, $1,000, there's not that much, very many coats that we're going to be able to purchase with that amount of money. So I think you really need to reevaluate. And I'm not even sure what, since I didn't sit on any of the discussions where your rating came from, where you came with the ranking, but I have concerns that an organization that's has been using the money wisely, it's being penalized, versus these other groups have, it's not even half of what y'all gave us last year. And I can understand that part if funding was limited, but to actually go even further in the cost, I don't get it. And if y'all can explain to us exactly why you came to that rationale of our percentage and why the amount of money that would be receiving is so much less than the last few years.
Thank you.
And then I also did provide a couple of support letters in addition to what was part of the application process from the parent liaison tour, the actual ones that work with the kids. So I mean, that's another part of this appeal process. Thank you.
Thank you. San Marcos Housing Authority.
I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity as well. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Years ago, I sat on the board myself, so I have an appreciation for what you're trying to do this year with the limited funds. And I don't have a lot to add other than I feel like I've kind of put everything in the appeal process letter to everybody. And it's kind of, what everybody has kind of been talking about this time. You'll have an incredibly difficult job and with such limited amount of funds. And that's one of the things I think, in the community, I would think we need to come together and bring it to the city's attention that there's a need for more funds. And so I think that there's people that would like to do that to make sure the city knows that the need has grown, but the budget has basically stayed the same for many years. So the only thing I'm not trying to ask for more money for our agency. Our agency would love more money, like every agency would. But really just the concern I wanted to express was just in the process of doing the percentages, the way it worked out, it really, in my opinion, unfairly benefited those that asked for the most. And my concern in that is that, next year you could have everybody asking for large amounts. And then the other is if you decide to fund everybody, I didn't hear all the presentations. The ones I heard were fantastic. So I assume all the agencies were fantastic. And that's probably why you wanted to fund everybody. But knowing that there's over 200 agencies or nonprofits in town, if the word gets out that, hey, if you apply, you're going to get something, the board may have 150 applications next year. And if the amount doesn't increase, that could also put a burden on the city staff of having to come up with 150 contracts for $2,000. Anyway, that's about all I wanted to say. I appreciate what you're doing. And if I can answer any other questions, I'll be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Southside Community Center for Emergency Shelter and Specific Assistance.
Well, good evening. And I want to just echo several of the sentiments that have come out here of the appreciation. Serving on a commission and an advisory board like this takes a lot of time in the evenings, takes it away from family, takes it away from fun activities, other things. So I just want you to really appreciate the servant leadership that you have in there. As I put in our letter, Southside works with a lot of these nonprofits. I see a lot of familiar faces, and that's a benefit of coming to one of these types of meetings. And so we're not necessarily asking any reallocation that's there. We know that there's a finite amount of funds. We do also note in particular that our specific assistance fund was cut to only giving us $4,000, only providing $4,000. And that's a program that keeps people in their homes and keeps people from having to turn to our emergency shelter or to the other programs that we have here. So, if there's additional funding that comes available, we would love to receive that. Also, as we look forward to going in the future years, we're concerned about this setting the precedent of saying, well, you received this much this year. We're just going to give you the same amount that you had last year. And then it becomes a permanent cut. And so that's our particular concern related to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now that all appealing agencies have a chance to speak, we will close this discussion period and open the discussion period for board members only. We will now hold a staff facilitated discussion among board members on the fiscal year 2022-23 Human Services Advisory application for the purpose of comparison, evaluation, and selection to create a recommendation to City Council on which applicant agencies should receive funding on and how much funding that should be granted to each selected agency. Carol, the floor is yours.
Okay, so board members, this is your chance to speak. We have had a few questions asked, and so I would like to bring those up specifically. Let's see what they are. Maybe it would be helpful to go over, I believe that Joe Castillo asked us to go over why such a low percentage and why so much less was funded. And then other than that, we've just heard concerns about the funding and the percentages and so forth. So I guess, do you want me to cover like how it was done? Okay, in brief, just to try to answer that question, the board had an evaluation system with scoring, and everyone scored the applications. And this year, the scoring was pretty consistent across the board. So I went ahead and averaged the scores to come up with the ranking of the agencies. And so you can see which one ranked number 1 in the scoring system down to number 38. And we had 38 programs requesting funding. And then when we got to the discussion period, the board decided to they wanted to fund all of the agencies and all of the programs, and decided that if we funded 55% for the top 15 and 20% for everyone else, that that would use up all the funds basically. And so the decision was made to do it that way. The next meeting, I brought up a few examples where I knew of issues that might arise. So for better or worse, I brought in a few other things to consider, and some small adjustments were made among the allocations based on those comments. But for the most part, it has stayed at that percentage level and funding everyone. Does that answer your question?
Not really. We could.
Okay. I probably can't ask.
No, that's fine.
Okay,
Sure.
sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
I can bring it up in the latter part of the agenda, so
Okay.
that's fine.
Okay, so with that, we will continue. So board members, what would you like to do now?
I would like to make a comment if I can, if you just bear with me for a minute. And I had a discussion with Carol, probably like right after all of this came to our attention, that we were going to be handed the appeal process. And I know Eleanor knows this to be true. We have never handled the appeal process. This is the very first time that we have this board, since I've been on this board, that we have ever handled the appeal process. The appeal process has always gone to City Council, because when we make a vote on something, our vote is usually final, and then that goes to the City Council. The appeal process is like in the middle, like where we are right now, but it goes to city council. And they have been able to find money for organizations without touching any of the monies that have been awarded. They've been able to do this several times with people who have appealed. They have also been able to, they can do really what they want to do, been able to take monies from the organizations and give it to another organization if that's what they want to do, because they have the final say so. We have, and that's where the problem lies. When this appeal process was brought to our attention, we were like, okay, what do we do? Because it's never been brought to our attention before, but it is in our policy and it has been there. And what we would have to do is unvote our vote. And then we would have to, there is a never-ending appeal process. Because if we go back and take 1 penny from one organization, they can appeal. So this appeal process will go on until next year, and nobody will get any money. because if you take something from an organization, then like Carol said, they have the right to come back and appeal that. And that's only rightfully so. So whoever wrote this appeal policy for the board made a mistake, because there's no way that we can rightfully make a decision tonight to undo what we've already done, because we've never, there's no ending to this. And it would be a disservice to you as an organization when you can go to city council and ask them to either find money, they're very good at it, at finding money to give you, or they can take money from here. But it has to be their decision. And I see why the appeal process has never come to us, because usually our vote is final. And I just don't see how we're going to make amends here to anyone. Because when does the appeal process end? According to the policy, we don't know. So for future agenda, I was going to make the recommendation that we go back to the appeal process, which is really written with a mistake, and try to rectify this some way where we don't have this problem again. But all of the agencies, and Eleanor knows this to be true, all of the agencies who have appealed in the past have gone to city council. It has never come back to us, because from our understanding, our vote is final, and then it goes to city council, who can overrule our decision. Now that makes sense. But to come back here for us to make a decision and there's no ending to an appeal, that makes no sense. So you're not getting your money until the appeal is over. And that's only if an agency decides not to appeal. And so what if we go back and take money and give it to you, but that's not the amount that you really want? And you can appeal that. So this was not written correctly for the appeal process to come back to the board. And because of that, I don't even know where to start. And then when does it end? And then we have new applications coming out next year. Is this going to tie your hands to ask for money again? I don't know. I talked to Carol about this, and I still have no answer. So I'm glad that Carol caught this, because this is the first time. But now we can go back and maybe tweak this, or rectify this in some way for next year. But this is just going to keep going and going and going until an agency say, okay, let's stop, and then we stop. So when does that happen? Late next year? And then when do you get your money? And what are we taking to city council? We can't take anything to them until the appeal process is over. So I'm recommending tonight that we take this whole process, your organizations, to city council and ask them to find money for you somewhere, because they're good at it. They've done it before. You can ask PALS and you can ask other organizations who have appeal that have not come to this board. They went straight to city council and they were able to get money. Eleanor knows this as well. They were able to get money. Also, city council can take money from here, do whatever they want to do, and you appeal to them. And I guess they will be the ones to tell you that, okay, the appeal stops here, but we can't. So really, with the way that the appeal process has been written, our hands are tied because it wasn't written correctly. Because now we have to go back and unvote what we already voted to go through appeal process that has no ending. So I recommend that you take this back to city council and allow us to work on this for next year and have them give you some money that you rightfully deserve. But I don't see how we can do that. Not with the way the policy is written.
Do other board members have some additional comments?
Mary,
Yes, I do. This is Mary Earls, and I apologize for the light. I'm in my car. As I was listening to the organizations this evening, I certainly concur with you. All the organizations, the ones present this evening and the ones that are not, you guys deserve better. And I agree. I think Todd said earlier, there's got to be more money put in place for these organizations. I mean, I think I've been on the board for a couple of years, and sometimes we get a lot and sometimes we get a little. There's never going to be enough. And all of the organizations, all of your efforts, I mean, we read the applications, we looked at them, and know that the entire board, we made the best decision we could. And what Joanne is saying is correct. This could go on forever and you would never get any money. We have got to fix the appeals process. The city council, it is in their hands truly now. We've already made our decision, we voted, and we certainly support everything that we've heard this evening. We'll be there with you because human services, it's like the need gets bigger and greater, and all of the organization, all of you are doing great things, and you're going to put in place bigger and better programs to service the people who are coming into our communities. I mean, San Marcos is just growing, Hays County is growing. And so everyone, I just want to say, I hope that you will join us, because we'll go with you. If your decision, whatever you decide, is certainly up to you. But at this point, as Joanne stressed and explained, our hands are tied. We made the decision. We can't, even if we went back, we would do all of the organizations a disservice of just pulling from here, pulling from there. It's not fair to any of you. So I encourage you, along with Joanne and the rest of the board, I'm sure that let's go to city council and see if we can get some more dollars. We know they're there. It's happened before. So we'll go with you. But I do think, and I will stress to the city council, there's got to be more money put into human services. We can't thrive and provide the services that we need on these pennies that we're being pitched. So that's all I can say right now. I mean, I have a lot to say when we go there, but I just, I mean, I feel what you're feeling.
I agree with you, Mary, and I agree with going with you to voice our concern as well, because this is a waste of time and it ties our hands. And so I don't know how the other board members feel, but I know that if we take any money from anywhere, I don't know when the appeal process will end. Be great if we can all go to city, and you will really benefit from going to city council. You will, because they have a final say so. And the reason that I'm repeating this, they have found money for organizations before. Have them find money for you. They have. They found $20,000 last year somewhere to give to PALS. They found money before for other organizations. The appeal process didn't come to us. They went directly to city council and they were able to find money for them. So have them find money for you.
Does anyone else? Go ahead, Gloria.
Well, I just want to state the obvious where we had 500,000 this year and 38 applicants. And last year I think because of federal funding and the COVID, whatever it's called, we had $1 million in 26 agencies or something. So, you know, something has to give. And not all the, you know, I recognize what I think it was CASA that was saying they had issue with how it was allotted based on scoring, that the agencies that got the highest, the least scores got the most money. But there was, if you look at the scoring, it wasn't a universal consensus. There was some significant difference in the scoring between the individual board members. So not everyone was on the same page with that. So I just wanted to offer that up, that not everyone scored the same as far as, you know, risks and just basic scores. That's all I want to say.
Allison, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, you know, I really do empathize with the folks that are on the call that didn't receive the funding in full. I know that there's a lot of time and energy placed into ensuring that you're not asking for too much while also getting enough for your organization to run effectively. So I completely empathize with that point. I do think that there is something that we need to, you know, ensure that, you know, in future years, we don't have folks, you know, asking for outrageous amounts in order to somehow fit within this percentage system that we derived for this year. So I do think that's something we want to make sure that we account for in future years. But I did have very similar thoughts to the items that were shared already, which is, you know, who do we defund? We know that everybody wants more, but it's like, who do we defund? And we did spend some time, at least initially, going through the list and saying, is there anybody that we say we just aren't going to fund in full, you know, at all this year? And had some deliberations there, and sort of came to the opinion that everybody that made it through that final process did have great organizations. And I think we all have different passions on the board around, you know, whether it's pets, whether it's children, whether it's education funding, whether it's, you know, prison release, you know, whatever it may be. We had a nice mix of a lot of different areas within the community that were represented as well too. And so that was another reason why we really felt that we wanted to give some funding to all organizations. I recognize that some organizations are able to get funding from a lot of other groups. And so this limits some organizations to maybe the funding that they rely on in a different way, which we tried to account for with the scoring and ranking as well too, which probably didn't capture all that nuance. So I just wanted to say that I completely empathize with the positions of the folks who are here tonight. I think we've all worried about some of those things in our discussions and also tried to be as fair as possible, while also sort of honoring the organizations that are supporting the community. And I think when Mary kind of went through that information around the appeals process. It would be very difficult for us to go through and say, who do we take money from? And then try to start the back and forth on negotiations around, well, if we take 5,000 here and move it here, now that organization needs to come in and do another appeals process. It does seem like a lengthy process to go through for us. Not to say that it's not worthy of a lengthy process, but just to say that it does feel like it would be hard to pinpoint those areas where you would remove additional funding. And so we did try to take that into account where we felt like the funding was so much more in this calendar year. That's why we looked 2 years back to see, was there an increase in funding because of need, or was it because we had additional funds to give? And so, yeah, nothing more to share other than, I sort of agree with the folks on the call. I think that obviously we want more funding for next year. I think that's something that we should all work towards as a community. But in lieu of that, obviously, coming to fruition for this calendar year, how we can see if there are opportunities to scrape together some additional funding for the organizations that are a part of the appeal process.
And also, Allison, add to that, for us to go back would be really putting us into next year, because we have no ending to the appeal. And that's the problem right now with this, is that it wasn't written correctly. And so that would be for future agenda, that we go back and address this and take into consideration also the way we scored, the percentage and everything, so that things can be done differently next year. But for this year, because I've seen city council give out money they found it somewhere. I just know that they can find it for you too. So your best bet to cut down on time so that you can get your money on time, whatever that is with the city council, is to not waste your time with us, because there's a mistake here, but to go to city council and let them rectify this, and we'll come with you. So I will be there just to let them know the problem that we have here that put us in the position where we are today. We've never gone this far. We've never handled the appeal process. Nobody has.
Okay, so can we go ahead and ask Rachel if she has something to contribute?
Yes, go ahead.
Rachel?
Yeah, I echo the sentiments of everybody else that's spoken on the call so far. For the folks that are here that presented their appeals, I totally understand your concerns. I'm glad that we addressed up front. I was confused about the appeals process, because to grant funds, I heard your appeals. I would want to give you all the money you asked for, but to do that, we would then have to defund 19 other groups to give you that money. And I'm quite certain they would want to come back to us and say, wait a minute, what now? It's a tough year with only half the funds available to distribute. This, and I get the strategy. Some of you brought up concerns about, okay, well, next year we'll just ask for more money, or you're going to get inundated with applications. And I understand, how that could end up happening. I don't think that doing the percentages this year, and full disclosure, I'm new to the board this year and late to the party, but I don't think that they've ever done the percentages before, nor would I hope, if we had more funds available, that we would have to do it again. But when we sat through these presentations and looked at all these packets and, looked at the scoring system that we were given, we did also look at funds that were granted in years past. And with things being tough all over, we couldn't find any organization that we didn't think needed any money. And that's why we did the percentages. I don't think that that's a trend that we would hopefully have to follow again, but that's what we went with this year. If we had said, okay, we're only going to fund the top groups, then I think we would have only funded 14. And none of these other organizations would have received any funds. So that's just to explain, some of you wanted to understand what the thought process was. That's what the thought process was, is, all the organizations have merit. They all add value to our community? And do you don't say, okay, only you guys can have them and everybody else you're on your own? And for this year, with the small amount of money that we had, we just wanted to do the most that we could with it. But I totally understand why you would want to fight for your organizations and to get more funding for them. And I agree, if we can go to city council and they can find more funds, then happy to support that effort and be there with you. And I think we do need to look at some of this process and tweak it a little bit for next year moving forward. But I agree with the other sentiments that everybody presented, but that was the only thing that I wanted to say.
Well, and I just want to say, Rachel, that I'm glad you expressed our thinking about how we tried to manage the limited funds that we had, the percentage process. And it was well put. And, and I hope that clarifies to the folks about how it ended up the way it did.
Thank you. And then Mariana, you haven't had a chance to speak yet, so I just wanted to see what you would like to say as well.
Sure, thank you. I don't know, I think my colleagues have summed up my thoughts as well. Very similarly, I just rejoined the board after originally serving 5 years ago, and the funding amount is still the same, although the circumstances and issues in our community have changed. The work that the organizations and each and every one of y'all do is very different. So we're not keeping up with the pace that we need to really to serve human needs in San Marcos. And so I agree, and I'm glad that Joanne brought up the issue with the appeals process, because this is also new for me, and so I'm learning. But do you find it difficult that with city council being the one with the final say, that I'm really glad and appreciate the time y'all took last week and today to share your concerns and voice your appeal, but it's challenging when they're the ones with the final say, and they're truthfully like the ones that can make that decision about what y'all will ultimately be receiving. And so we could go back and forth all night. And I know that those who voted on our suggestions, my colleagues, we all did our best and tried our best to be fair, consistent, while carefully considering other things that were brought to our attention. But I don't know what we'll decide tonight or what everyone else will decide, but I just really appreciate y'all being here and for the work that y'all do, and just being supportive of us and the hard decisions everyone is having to make.
Okay, does any board member, I'll sum up what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is that it sounds like majority of the board members are saying, let's not change anything and let's just take it to council and then make the point to council that more funding is needed. That's what I'm hearing.
Correct.
Is that okay?
That's the only thing we can do.
Okay. So with that, we will need to do a vote by poll. And we'll need a motion and a second. So I think what you want, and like, I'm just trying to put this together from what y'all have said. I think what you're saying for your motion is that no changes will be made to the funding, and that city council should be asked for more funding overall.
Sure.
So
I think you also should place in there that it's because I think that you should also place in there that it's because of the flawed appeal process that we're having to deal with. It's not that we don't want to, it's that we cannot.
Okay.
And more money needed. Can you recommend that they give us $1 million again?
Y'all can recommend. Like,
we put that in there too.
Like, what I'll do next, like, we will need to have a vote on this, but just so you know what the process is after that, this goes to city council on the 14th, and we've already put together the packet for the council. And so tonight, after this meeting, I'm gonna go back and finalize the packet for the city council
Okay.
and put how the board voted and what the request is.
Okay.
So they'll get it in their packet for next week's meeting.
And then when can we go before city council? The
Then-
organizations and the board.
Oh, that's a good question. So in order to speak to city council, y'all will need to go to the citizen comment process at the beginning of the meeting, because there's not a public hearing as part of the board of the council's decision-making process.
Okay. I didn't know
So,
that worked.
yeah, so I'm glad you asked that. So you'll need to show up at the citizen comment period at the very beginning of the meeting to make the appeal.
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay, so I feel like I should turn the meeting back over to you, and you can call for a motion
Okay.
and
So,
then, and a second, and then we'll do a roll call vote.
do we have how to word this?
Okay, so,
I'm going to make a motion that the previous vote stands and that we take this back to city council for their final approval due to the fact that we cannot appeal because of the flaw in the appeal process.
okay.
And Joanne, don't we want to recommend that also part of that appeal is that they, I think we need to say that they seek additional funding
Yeah.
to distribute to the organizations that are coming and
Okay.
appealing.
Yes.
Because I think that needs to come from us.
Yes.
That recommendation that the additional funding be sought and issued to them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I need to clarify something. Let's see, that's the first time I've heard it said that additional funding should be issued just to the appealing agencies. So I'm just double checking. Do you want to make that a more general, or do you want to specifically have the additional funding request to go to the appealing agencies?
Well, we've already recommended that they go to city council and ask for additional funding. I want to show support for the reason they're coming.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that will prompt them to dig deeper and find the money that they're asking for.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Carol, do we need to give them do we need to state the dollar amount that we need for the groups that that came for the appeal? Like, do we need to be specific in asking city council, we're requesting that you give us another $158,000 in funding?
It would be helpful. Is that how much it is?
Yeah, I think so. Let me double check my math. Yeah, it's $158,854. That would fully fund the 10 groups that appealed tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then I'll jump in. Are there any other additions to the motion?
No. I don't think so.
It's up to the council whether or not they want to fully fund them, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they won't necessarily be fully funded based on whatever criteria they use.
But we're asking for
I
it.
don't want them to think that, I mean, I wouldn't think that simply because you're appealing, you would anticipate getting fully funded. That they could, in addition, get partially funded, depending on how much other grant money they get from elsewhere. Certainly that was part of my decision, whether or not they had, additional funding from other resources versus primarily us.
But I don't believe we should be going in with that because we've already been through this process. We're going in supporting them because I totally agree. There needs to be
Well,
more
I
money.
support them, but I still think
They
it's
should be given more
to
money.
them whether or not, I support them, of course, but it's still, you know, I'm just getting the, what I'm hearing is that if you appeal that the outcome is going to be you're going to be fully funded. And
Let's go
might not
in
be
with that anticipation for them, that they're gonna get it.
Because they've done it before, Gloria. We're not asking for something that they've never done before.
Exactly.
I brought this up is because they've done it before. They did it last year. They found $20,000 for PALS somewhere.
I
But
hear
it
that.
didn't
I
come
hear the
out.
$20,000 for PALS. I hear it.
Okay, so they can find it from somewhere.
Okay,
That's not 158.
We want the 158. That's why we're going and asking for it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right,
Okay.
all we can do is ask, and if city council says, we can't give you 158, well, maybe they can give us 75, and maybe then they can make the decision which groups they'll distribute a little bit more to. But if we spell it out, what we're asking for, that gives us a starting point.
Exactly.
Okay, that's more clear to me.
Okay, you want to call for a second?
Okay, let's see. Do I hear a second to the motion that was made?
Second.
Okay, Mary, thank you. So do I say all in favor, say aye?
No, we have to do a
You
roll
have to do a
call.
roll call.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Okay, Allison,
Am I saying here, or is this an agreement with the?
okay, this is an agreement with the motion that the previous vote stands. The appeals process is flawed, and therefore that's why we're taking it back to city council. And the board is requesting additional funding to be issued to the appealing agencies, which totals 158,854.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. And Mary?
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
And Gloria?
Agree.
Okay. All right, so there's your vote.
Okay. And so did I go back to
Okay, then we're back to,
our final action item?
yes.
Okay. Our final action item of the evening is to review and discuss 2023 Human Services Advisory Board calendar and consider approval. Do any board members have comments or questions about the calendar that was in our packet? It is now time to receive updates from board
Okay,
members.
I'm sorry, I didn't put this in here for you, but you need to take a vote on the calendar.
Okay, to approve the calendar?
Mhm.
Okay. I guess we'll take a vote on approving the calendar. Now, is this all in favor, say aye? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. It's now time to receive updates from board members on
Sorry,
their,
you need to call for people who say name.
oh, anybody say nay?
Okay,
No, okay.
okay, thank you.
All right. It's now time to receive updates from board members on activities since the last meeting. Does any board member have any updates for the group? All right, we will move to the next item, which is future agenda items. Board members may provide requests for discussions, items for a future agenda in accordance with the board's approved bylaws. No future discussion can be held related to the topic proposed until they are posted on a future agenda in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act. Does any board member want to request an item for a future agenda? I would, and that is to revisit our appeals process. Is there anything else for a future item that you want discussed? Thank you. We will now move on to the agenda item called question and answer session with press and public. This is an opportunity for the press and public to ask questions related to items on this agenda. Staff, is anyone present in person, online, or by phone to speak to this agenda item?
Okay, so we do have, a lot of people online and in person.
Okay.
And so if you want to ask a question related to the items on the agenda, then if you could raise your hand, and if you can't figure out how to raise your hand, just speak and we'll figure it out.
So did y'all want to?
Well, one is on the ranking. I mean, if I get more details as far as why NLG would receive the score that it got, as far as what could I have done better as far as the presentation that I gave, or there was something else that I could have done better that would have helped increase our percentage that y'all came up with. That would be very beneficial. The other thing too is that, I'm not sure if it really relates, but as far as the funding that you're looking from city council, because they approved their budget for October. So you may want to consider moving the application cycle earlier, like it needs to be. I mean, it needs to be in February, but you don't necessarily have to do it that early, but just give it enough time so that when you get the applications, you know how much funding you need to ask city council or how much they need to allocate instead of them going, through this appeals process, technically of going to city council member and saying, can you, because really y'all's recommendation carries a lot of weight. But individual organizations can go over that and talk to individual council members, and if they get the 4 votes, they could change it, but I think if y'all maybe get earlier in the process of setting up the budget, with city council and whatever budget y'all are working with, I think would be very beneficial. Also, I think having interviews with the agencies like y'all used to do. I think I've mentioned that before, because the 3 minutes that you hear a presentation, to me, that's really not enough to really get the idea of what an agency does.
I missed the on-site visits.
And so I think that would be, now that COVID's semi over, or you can even do virtually, because I did one virtually before too. So, but that would be my recommendations on that. But I appreciate all the hard work that y'all done. I know that it's hard, limited amount of money, the number of agencies that y'all had to hear. I listened to the majority of them, and agencies had some really interesting programs that they needed y'all to fund, and so I wanted to thank y'all for all that y'all do in that part.
Can I address this budget?
The question?
Yeah, this question about the budget.
Yeah.
They tell us how much money we're getting. We never sit down and discuss with them how much they're giving us. So when we come in, we know we have $500,000, and this is the most. It used to be like 465,000 when I started. So now it's like $500,000, but they tell us. And I think they have to go through a process to increase it, but we have nothing to do with that. That's city council.
Well, I'm just saying that you could provide them the details of, this is how much people is requesting. Can you allocate, this in our budget so that, like you said earlier, they can find money anywhere, but it's just matter, instead of them trying to find it later,
I understand.
find it at the beginning.
Find it at the beginning.
Yes.
Okay.
Does anyone else have questions related to items on this agenda?
Carol, I wanted to bring it to the board chair's attention that there was an anonymous question in the Q&A. I don't know if that individual is still on the call and wants to speak now, or if it can be read off. I know we can't discuss it, but I just wanted to point out there's a question there.
Thank you very much. If the HSAB recommends to City Council that the appealing agencies get more money, won't every other agency that didn't get what was requested be expected to want to appeal?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it could happen.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Then that'll be city council's problem, not ours.
Yeah. Let's see, Eleanor, you have your hand up. I'm sorry, I didn't see who put their hand up first, but we'll just go with Eleanor and then Tricia.
That's okay. What was the total requested from everybody this year?
I have it, 1 second.
I probably have it somewhere, but.
It was $1,652,481.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then Tricia from CASA.
Thank you. Joanne touched on this a little bit ago, and I just wondered if you know now, if you could share, not now, at some point to share with us the history of the Human Services funding budget. When did the city first put it in place, and how much was it? And how long has it been at this $500,000 amount?
We can do that. I'll have to compile it.
Hasn't gone up much.
Yeah, and I don't know where it started, so I'll just have to look back.
Because when I
Through the
started,
years.
it had already been in operation for a couple of years, and it was at 400,000, a little over 40,000.
Okay. Okay.
And that's the question. I just don't know how to unraise my hand right now.
Okay, and I don't think so I can't help there. But we do have Julie Holler from Youth Services Board.
Hi, yeah, I am curious if I feel like everybody checked it, but if somebody's asking for $200,000, is their budget $400,000? Because we're only supposed to ask for 50%, right?
So the 50% of the agency budget, not the program budget. That's also a different interpretation than what had been interpreted in the past. And we did check that. So yeah, we did. Thanks for asking. Okay. It looks like that's all our hands. So back to you.
So thank you all for your participation. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting? The motion is made by.
Sorry, Julia just raised her hand.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see it. Julia?
I'm sorry, guys, just real quick. Can you tell me when we changed it, when we opened it up to individuals outside of San Marcos? Serving individuals outside of San Marcos.
I think I don't know. My understanding is that the programs have the money from San Marcos has to serve people in San Marcos. The agency can, or the program can serve people outside of San Marcos, but this funding should be used in San Marcos.
Okay, excellent. That was me misinterpreting because it said it may also provide services to residents of other communities. It means that you can serve, but you can't use city funding.
Yeah, and so maybe
Right.
we need to look at how that's worded.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay.
And just one additional piece to that. We did ask, I think in most of the interviews, if they didn't explicitly say, we did ask in the interviews how many residents were going to be affected by the funding as well too.
And I think one of the things with the SHOE program, for example, the city of council years ago allowed us to spend money on kids like that live in Martindale or Guadalupe County because they're really part of the San Marcos School District. So that's kind of one exception of where, yeah, the city, they're supposed to be city funds, but the students from the San Marcos School District are considered San Marcos residents.
You explain that to us. Yeah, in fact, you explain that to us every year.
Yeah. Okay, I think that was it.
Okay, thank you all for your participation. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting? The motion is made by.
Motion.
Okay, Mary, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor say aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
All against say nay. I will now adjourn the meeting at 8:16 p.m.